Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm Dr. Jawad Ashraf. I'm Assistant Professor in Computer Science in Institute of Computing, Guwahati University of Science and Technology. Today I'm going to talk about web technologies. Before that, I'll go through what we have done so far. I'm going to revise a few of the topics, and then I'm going to give you an overview of different existing programming languages in the market, and then we'll go through a roadmap to become a full stack developer. After that, I'll briefly explain the plan that we will follow throughout the remaining semester. And as a case study, we are going to develop a website for Contoso University, that is a fictitious university developed by Microsoft, and Microsoft provided tutorials revolving around this university. So let's get a recap. We studied that when a user requests a page through URL bar at the top of the browser, say you provided this URL, and the browser sends a request through internet to a DNS server. DNS server is domain name service, a server that actually finds the server that is hosting this website, and it is searched based on an IP specifically assigned to that server. So it searches throughout the internet. Once it finds the server, the request is sent to that hardware server, the machine server. And inside that machine, different softwares are running, and one of those software is a web server. That could be Apache web server or an IIS web server. The responsibility of that server or web server is to fulfill the request or send a response to a request of a user of a browser. So when it receives this URL, it searches for index.html or maybe index.php or .asp file, and then send that file as a response to the browser. Now, when the user sees HTML and different images, videos, and different CSS effects, these all are sent in a bundle, or you can say in a stream, to the browser, and the browser knows how to render these things. Browser understands how to render HTML tags. Browser understands how cosmetics of CSS can be applied to these HTML tags and other stuff. So the simple round of the request of a page is, I'm repeating it again, a user request through browser requests a page, and that request is sent through DNS server to a server. Server runs different web servers, which are softwares, which are applications, and these applications understand what request has been asked to fulfill, and to fulfill that request, they send a response to the browser, and in that response they send HTML, CSS, JavaScript, images, and other stuff to the browser, and browser then renders those things appropriately. Okay, so now that we revised how a page is retrieved from a server, let's go to see what we did so far. And while developing a website, which was an assignment for you people, you used different building blocks, and in those building blocks you used HTML, CSS for cosmetics, JavaScript for behavior, and all these three things in combination They help you make a very attractive and very interactive website. Then we learned different libraries or frameworks and different techniques to make websites even better for a better user experience. We studied about jQuery, a JavaScript library which actually helps developers, programmers to do a lot of work with less effort. And similarly, we discussed and implemented Bootstrap CSS framework, which is also very helpful to minimize the work of CSS for the developer. It's easy to use and it's very intuitive, and it helps to build website quickly. And another thing that we came across is Ajax. Ajax is a technique to give even a better experience to a user. With the help of Ajax, you simply send a request to server without loading the page. And the request goes in the background to the server and brings data and then shows that data uh, without reloading the page, which enhances the experience of user. So this was a brief recap of what we did so far in the course. Now let's move towards what we are going to do in the remaining course. We are going to talk about server-side programming languages. I have chosen a few popular programming languages. There are many others, but I have chosen a few just to give you an overview. PHP is one of the most popular one. It is an open source programming language, and PHP stands for Hypertext Preprocessor. And then there is ASP. It is a Microsoft technology. It was also very popular. Now it is rarely being used because it's very old. The newer version of ASP is ASP.NET and web forms, ASP.NET MVC, and ASP.NET Core. And there is another version of it as well. I haven't included in the slide. This one is very popular. Web form was very popular during, you can say, early 2000, from 2000 to 2005, 2007. And then after that, MVC was introduced and MVC took over, and it is still very much popular and very mature for even enterprise level application development. Now, in 2015, after 2015 and 16, the core was introduced, and core. The main purpose of this ASP.NET Core technology was to work on different platforms. So you can say that it's a cross-platform technology. Another very popular language is Java Server Page, or JSP. It was popular for its security, but it has different problems as well. It was difficult to implement, so developer usually preferred PHP and ASP. And nowadays, Node.js is one of the most popular technology for developing a website. It is JavaScript based. It means that it runs JavaScript language on both client side and server side. And the reason of popularity, one of the reasons of popularity is that the developer has to learn only JavaScript and he can work on both sides. And there are some other reasons as well. Other than these languages, if you want to see what other languages or different technologies exist for developing websites, you can go to this link and you can see for yourself. They have provided different benchmarks, different comparisons of different technologies. So based on that, you can choose on for certain projects, you can choose which technology is suitable. Okay, now that we have gone through server-side scripting languages, let's talk about the roadmap, which I'm very eager to just share with you people. Um, this roadmap is developed by Kamran Ahmed, and it is for both front-end developer and back-end developer. And if you want to become a full-stack developer, then you can follow both tracks. And by full-stack developer, I mean who understands or who knows skills of both front-end, back-end developer. So let's go to the page. You can see that this sharing has already received 100,000 plus stars. I would urge you people as well to go and give a star to this sharing. This is just a path, and along the path you can see different, it is touching different technologies and different boxes. Few boxes are orange, some are yellow, and some are with different ticks, and you can see what each tick means. Personal recommendation, a recommendation of Kamran Ahmed, and alternative option, order in roadmap not strict, learn anytime. So it's all self-explanatory, so I don't have to explain this. Okay, so basically you need to understand how internet works. So we already know that we have gone through these things, and you got these introductory courses before this course as well. And then we briefly touched HTML, CSS, JavaScript, so you have an idea that what these things are. While developing or developing skills of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you need to understand this technology as well, and this system, I would say. Version control system is a system in which you maintain different different copies of your work. Say you were developing a web page and it was very fine and at a time, and then you made some changes into it, and then it was converted, you can say, into a second version of that page, and similarly third version and fourth version. At some point you came to know that there is some problem in version number 5 and you want to roll back to version number 3. With the help of version control system, you can recover the changes that you did till version 3, and you can restart or resume your work from version 3. So it's a very useful technology, very useful system, and it is highly recommended by professionals. Actually, no software development should be conducted without using these version control system. And you may have already heard about GitHub, which is actually repository hosting services. So it is actually following these version control systems, one of the version control system. And like GitHub, there is another website, GitLab and Bitbucket, and Microsoft has its own same repository hosting service. So you need to understand basic usage of Git, and then you also need to understand basics of web security and how different website can become vulnerable to different threats, and how you can make a website secure by using different techniques. And so you have to develop these skills as well. It becomes very critical when you develop websites, say like daraz.pk, and someone hacks daraz.pk, and the effect of that hack could be very devastating. So it is always better to be safe rather than sorry. Doesn't matter if you are building a small size website, not very critical website, it's always good to follow security standards. And you can study this OWASP. OWASP is an organization which actually provide different standards and best practices guidelines. So a developer it becomes easier for developer to know that what to follow. So I would urge you people to go to the website of OWASP and to read what they have to say. Okay, the next important thing is package managers. Package managers are softwares applications which help you manage different packages that you use in a website. NPM and Yarn are one of the most popular package managers. They help you organize different packages in your a project, website project maybe, or mobile project. By packages, we mean, say you want to use a table like data structure or table like structure in your website, and you don't have time to develop a table with certain features. So you can use a package which is called datatables.net from the internet, and you can install it in your website, and you can use its features, you can use its different functionalities, and you can enhance your website without doing much of a work. So that's packages help you. So you need to understand how packages can be managed, how dependencies of packages can be managed, and it also helps you to prepare your website for production environment, because sometimes too many packages may slow your website. So these package managers help you make your website faster, even with using lots of packages. Okay, after that, another important thing that comes across is CSS preprocessors and architectures. SAS is one of the popular preprocessor. It actually brings dynamicity to CSS. So if you are on the track of front-end developer, definitely you are going to come across this approach. So definitely learn this technology. And then these are build tools, which I just talked about, NPM and Yarn. They actually prepare your website for production environment, which I discussed over here. Then these are the most demanding frameworks in the front end world. So I would urge you people to learn at least one of these. These framework make the user experience very pleasant, and yes, sometimes they become very difficult to manage. Sometimes becomes very difficult to transform into, but still it's worth the effort. That the experience that they bring to the table is far more I would say pleasant. So it's one of the best among these framework is React.js. It's more in demand. Angular is not in that much demand as it was earlier in 2015 or 16. And now React.js has taken the place. React.js is developed by Facebook. Angular is maintained by Google. Vue is maintained by some an organization, a private organization, and I would recommend to you people that you should learn React.js first, and if you don't like it, then you can move to Angular as well. And other things that are related to React.js and these framework is a component-based development. I'm not going into the details of these things, but you will come across, definitely you will come across a component-based development if you will work on React.js and Vue.js. And these are different frameworks that are used inside these frameworks. and it is for state management of the websites. So it's an advanced topic. I'm not going to talk about this one. And after that, you can see these are different CSS related boxes. So it's okay if I skip this to this portion so that I can explain, which seems more relevant to me. This is the new technology to bring the data from server to client side, and by client I mean could be a web browser or a mobile application. GraphQL was developed by Facebook, and it is an alternative to REST API. The purpose of this technology is to bring the data in JSON form. So it is gaining popularity. I would say you should try to understand how GraphQL delivers the data, how you can request the data from GraphQL, and how it is related to the front end development. You don't have to learn GraphQL, but you need to understand how it works. And then one thing that I would like to bring into your notice is this React Native. The React Native technology is used to develop mobile application, not the web application. And the good thing about this technology is that you can develop once, and you can run the application on Android, iOS, or Windows mobile and platform. So that's why it's also one of the popular technology. It saves a lot of developer time. And then the new technology that is coming very quickly into the market is WebAssembly. WebAssembly is going to replace JavaScript. It is a possibility that it is going to replace JavaScript, and it is very reliable, very fast, and I urge you people to just learn that what this technology is. Okay, now that we have seen front end roadmap, let's talk about back end developer roadmap. Back end developer has more value in the market nowadays, and the reason is backend developer actually develops the core of an application, the mind of an application. Front end developer only presents whatever the website is doing in the backend. So if you want to get a solid career in development, then I would urge you all to focus on backend developer more than the front end developer. Obviously, when you will be working as a backend developer, you will also get some knowledge of basic front end development as well, and it is actually very necessary to understand how front end is connected with the backend of a website. Anyway, I'm going to take you through this roadmap very quickly. I don't think that you need to understand what all these boxes are, but when a time comes, you will understand that what box you would need at a certain time of your project. Not all these skills are used in all the projects. Sometimes some are used, and some of them may not be necessary for that project. Anyway, as far as languages of backend website backend technology is concerned, you can choose any of these. These are one of the most popular one, and this Rust and Go language is has been introduced very recently, and it is gaining the popularity very quickly. You can Anyway, you can choose any one of these because all these languages are in demand, and there are many websites that are being developed using these languages. And the syntax of the language should never be a problem for you, because basically the working of a language is very much similar. You just need to understand how different structures, different building blocks of one languages are corresponds to the building block of another language. What I'm trying to say, if you know Java, you can easily switch to C Sharp or PHP and even Python. So it should not be a problem for you people to switch to different languages. And then along with these languages, again, you need to understand how version control systems work. And this is from here the path changes with a great deal as compared with the front end developer roadmap. You need to understand the relational databases and how DBMS works, how DBMS transforms the real world information into computer, or you can say into digital form. And you can learn one of these or maybe all of these database servers. PostgreSQL is recently getting more popularity, so I would urge you that you also have a look. You should also have a look at this PostgreSQL. And along with the relation database, you must understand how NoSQL databases are changing the way we used to do things. NoSQL databases were introduced because of very unstructured data. By unstructured, I mean in a table you have a very organized way of data, but in case of Twitter blog, Twitter post, or any other blog or Facebook post, you get different kinds of things in it. You get text, you get video, you get audio, you get images, all related to a post or a comment. So it is easier to store that data using NoSQL database. And among the popular databases, these are a few, so you can choose any one of these and follow the path based on these databases. Other thing that you need to understand about databases is there are some efficiency related things, or some management related things, or security related things, or maybe better software development approaches are there in these boxes like ORM. So it is also very important to learn these skills. And after that, you can also look for, it's not necessary that you need to understand how APIs work. You can be a backend developer without understanding APIs, but if you know how APIs work, then it will become very easy for you to become a more experienced and valuable developer in the market. Again, along with these skills, you need to understand web security. At least you should have knowledge of different security problems and how to cope with these problems. And these are not very much uh, uh, these are not very difficult to understand and not very difficult to implement the patches or the practices that are needed to cope with these problems. And then for efficiency, you need to understand how caching works, how a page can be loaded very quickly, what are the different other problems related to the speed of a website. So you need to understand caching as well. And this portion is going to make you a very I would say mature developer and a reliable developer. If you follow the practices of testing based development, then you will be regarded as a reliable developer in the market. CI/CD means continuous integration and continuous delivery. And you can do continuous delivery if you are doing testing. Testing based development is going to actually help you to deliver your product very quickly, and quick delivery of your product means a successful business. So it is very important to learn these things as well. And then as a project size increases, it's better to have a better way of writing code. It's easy to write a code, but it's difficult to write a code that is very much easily humanly understandable and manageable. And this is also a very important part of the development, back-end development life cycle, that you need to understand how you can write a clean code, how you can write different pattern-based code, so that in long run you can easily manage your code that could be millions of lines of code. So this is very important. I will try to discuss this during the development phase of our this course. And then you need to again understand this new approach for virtualization, and what is a container, what is containerization. This is a new approach to develop and deploy application. And then you need to understand this is a new database. If you might not be needing it, but in case it comes across, a graph database is another technology that is being introduced in the market. And then along with these, you can also work on WebSockets. WebSockets help you develop a website that looks very much live. Like on WhatsApp, when you start typing a message, the other person to whom you are typing to starts seeing that you are typing. This is possible because of WebSockets. Live streaming is possible because of WebSockets. So this is also very important. And you need to understand working of different web servers as well. So I think this is more than enough to have an overview of how you can become a backend developer, and it is going to give you a clear view of your future path. So let's move to the next topic. Okay, so let's talk about study plan. We will briefly talk about ASP, just give you an overview then how classic ASP used to work, and then a little more detail would be given about PHP. The reason I'm going to give you the overview of these languages is that you may understand how these languages used to work and how this new framework is different from these old approaches. You cannot understand the value of this framework unless you have gone through different old languages like PHP and ASP. So you won't take this framework as a full granted thing. And along with this MVC5 framework, we are going to use Entity Framework 6, which is responsible for different database operations. And if we would get some time at the end of the course, I will give you an overview of PHP Laravel framework, which is, you can say, very much similar to ASP.NET MVC. It won't be difficult for you to understand PHP Laravel framework if you finish this framework in the course. After that, let's talk about the Contoso University. Contoso University, as I said, is a fictitious university, and Microsoft tutorials are based on this university. Different pages huge number of pages are available. Tutorials are available for to learn entity framework and different other technologies which Microsoft has built. Along with the Microsoft tutorials, we will learn few things on our own. We will prepare CRUD pages for independent database entity. By CRUD, I mean create, read, update, and delete. I'm sure you people are already aware of this. And then we will develop pages that are going to address one-to-many scenarios in the database. You are um, learning databases in your another course, so I hope that you understand what one-to-many means. Similarly, we will develop pages for man-to-many cases, and we will develop a search page with sorting and pagination facility. Along with these simple pages, we will deeply understand on entity framework. We will understand routing, that how URLs work, and we will also understand authentication and authorization using ASP.NET Identity, which is not included in the tutorials usually provided by Microsoft. So I may go prepare my own tutorial for you people. And then we will learn about different security best practices, and we will also learn about writing a clean code, and about that clean code I just discussed in the backend developer roadmap track. So what we did so far in this presentation, we discussed how a web browser renders a page and what are the different building blocks of a website, what you developed so far. And then we went through different web programming languages and frameworks. We also discussed a roadmap of a full stack developer. We then chalked out our plan, and we also discussed that what we are going to learn. I think this is it. See you in the next lecture. Assalamu alaikum.